politics aside, at the most basic level, we need to be sure we can trust that the president of the United States is acting in what at least they believe to be the best interests of the country rather than their personal best interests. And it can be hard to be sure of that. So there are some basic actions that a president can take to at least give that impression. We need to feel like this is the one thing that the president is doing, being president of the United States, not president of the U.S. and a guy who is positioning his own companies for massive profits over the next 4 years or whatever else. And a picture that surfaced recently of President-elect Donald's daughter, Ivanka Trump, in a meeting with Donald and the Prime Minister of Japan, Shinzo Abe, is deeply disturbing on many levels. Can you imagine? Hi, Mr. Prime Minister, welcome. By the way, my daughter and son-in-law will be in the meeting. She works for the Trump organization. Neither of them has a security clearance, but they'll just be hanging out during the meeting. Ivanka Trump is not part of the incoming administration, and she's actually banned from being part of the administration legally through a 1967 law, which is seen as a response to when President Kennedy made his brother attorney general, and it bans public officials from hiring their relatives. Pretty straightforward, and it makes sense. And as I mentioned, in addition to that, Ivanka Trump has no security clearance, and as president-elect, Donald is authorized to start getting security briefings. And this is, the conversations he's starting to have with other world leaders are not conversations that Ivanka Trump should be part of. But it actually goes even further than that, because Ivanka Trump is supposedly going to be handling Donald Trump's businesses, which makes it even more important that she not be found anywhere near state business. And in addition to that, her husband, Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, was at the meeting, and all the same things I just said about Ivanka Trump hold true about Jared Kushner as well. So what's developing under the incoming Trump administration is the definition of corrupt, oligarchical, crony capitalism. This is a middle finger to the voters that were bamboozled into voting for Trump for a change to the status quo. And for some background, when George W. Bush became president of the U.S., he liquidated his assets and he put them in what's called a qualified diversified trust. When President Obama became president, he moved his money into index funds and government bonds, basically saying, if the broader country does well, his investments will do well, but he would be hard pressed to make individual decisions to help his investments. Trump has said that he would put his businesses into a blind trust, but like with both things, this number one doesn't make any sense, and number two exposes that Trump doesn't know what a blind trust is. Trump has said his kids will be running the business, Pat. That means it is neither blind nor a trust. His kids are going to be running the businesses. They're on the transition team. The idea is that President-elect Donald, as president, shouldn't have a connection to what is happening with the business. And obviously there's nothing blind or disconnected about your own kids running the businesses. The Ivanka Trump, Jared Kushner picture in the meeting with Prime Minister Shinzo Abe is just all the more disturbing. Excuse me.
Well, I think the issue here is that there's no legal obligation for you to put your assets into a blind trust or into index funds.
Right.
It's just considered the noble and sensible thing to do, right? Much like releasing your tax returns is, so that the American public knows if you have any potential conflicts of interest. It's just the right thing to do.
And it's even worse with Trump because he's in the real estate business, because real estate businesses often thrive on easy money from banks. And the rates and willingness of banks for lending are heavily determined by broader economic policy, who President Donald appoints to certain roles. This can directly influence a variety of interest rates, which relate to the money available to real estate businesses. Now, if your kids are running your businesses, that is not a blind trust. You have to hand over your assets to a neutral third party, and the contents of the trust need to be unknown to you. And as you can imagine, this is just impossible with Donald Trump's business situation. What we're talking about here is the possibility of a real oligarchy, right? Government by a few, often involving familial power. And it's bad enough when you have the president closely tied to business interests, like, for example, Dick Cheney and Halliburton and profits from the Iraq War. That's bad enough. What we have with Donald Trump is red alert. I cannot possibly overstate how dangerous this is. Trump has said there would be no conflicts of interest, which is completely laughable. And there are White House ethics lawyers on both sides who have said this is very concerning. Now, for those who voted for Trump out of economic anxiety, maybe in part anxiety caused by the idea of Hispanic people taking your jobs, but not all. How exactly are these meetings with Shinzo Abe and Ivanka in Trump's gold-plated Trump Tower palace? How is this communicating, Pat, that things are going to get really good soon for the middle and lower class?
I'm sure they're not. I mean, this is nepotism at its finest, and I don't think things are going to improve under his administration.